Shalom, good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America in New York State in 1981, now celebrating our 44th year. Today is Tuesday, October 28th, 2025 in the Gregorian calendar. And since it is after nightfall in the Hebrew calendar, the days start the night before. It is the seventh day of the 8th Israelite Hebrew month of Cheshvan in the Hebrew Israelite calendar, New Year 5786. Welcome to episode 46B of our monthly Root and Branch Association Lost Tribe Fellowship seminars. The chairman is Mr. Yair Davidiy, the founder of Britam Hebrew Awareness, known for his lifetime work on the lost tribes of Israel, especially as we are found, according to his belief, in the English-speaking, Celtic, Northwest European, and Scandinavian countries. And we're so glad to have a special guest speaker on the Tabernacle, Mr. Andrew Hoy of Wisconsin, and the Madam Chair of the program is Mrs. Sylvia Halpert of Michigan, who is the Madam Co-Chairs of the Gathering 10 Tribes. Is that the name?
Right.
Right, a group, they primarily on Facebook. They're up to nearing 3,000 members. If I had nothing else to do, I just read all the posts because so much music and art and history and culture and theology and anthropology, all the good stuff. I wouldn't do anything else. But from time to time, I take a look at all and try to control the frustration of all the things I am not able to read and listen to at the moment. So now we welcome our friends Miriam, Mary, Lori, Cynthia, Charlene, Mark, David, from England's once green and pleasant land, hopefully it'll be green and pleasant again eventually, the United States, and I'm the only one here from ERETZ, YISRAEL. And I'm originally from the Hudson Highlands of New York State, and I'm still in my mind from there. I understand my grandparents much better came to the United States 2 generations ago from Eastern Europe. So now, without further ado, let me hand over the mic to our distinguished guest and our lovely and charming mighty woman of the God of Israel, Mrs. Sylvia Halpert. Sylvia and Andrew, ladies first, it's all yours. I'm going up to the gallery.
Thank you, Lowell. We would like to welcome Mr. Andrew Hoy, who has developed a model of the tabernacle that is based on the Hebrew description and dimensions and architectural plans given to Moses by God himself. And because Andrew has carefully examined the Hebrew and seen that it does not resemble the English translation, he has a very different perception from what we traditionally have thought of regarding the tabernacle. And this topic is very important to us as we look towards the soon coming day of the regathering of lost Israel, and when we will hopefully also assemble at the tabernacle. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, Andrew, and telling us, will this be erected at Shiloh or where? And you take it away.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Lowell and Sylvia. As kind of mentioned, I'm a mechanical engineer. I am basically started getting kind of Hebrew obsessed like 2008, and ended up spending time studying Hebrew in Israel. So I lived in Haifa for a little bit, and also near the old city, Jerusalem, doing Hebrew study there. But wasn't really into the tabernacle in any which way, and so what I've got and what I've come up with was kind of a stumble upon, discovered by accident. It's like if you look at all the books in Israel, I went since my discovery on the tabernacle, I went to Israel back in 2016 to try to bring attention and see the gauge the Jewish response on it, and I went to basically all the bookstores that I could find. I walked to in Jerusalem, what have you. And one thing they have in common is barely any of them have any tabernacle books. Few of them have a few more temple books typically, but the subject of the tabernacle is not well considered, especially seeing that you have two parshas a year that focus on it, as far as the annual reading cycle. So I think a lot of the reason why there's such an indifference is because the way it's been understood, and one of them is, as Sylvia had mentioned, um, the English translation. Well, that's true that the English translation's been kind of botched. The understanding of it has been actually messed up quite a bit longer as far as, what Josephus thought, as far as the dimensions that he gives for it are incorrect. As well as there's evidence that suggests that the translators of the Septuagint didn't understand it either. I'm not going to get into those particulars now. I guess hoping to just lay some groundwork, getting into the credibility, feasibility of this. So there's a practicality aspect, but again, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I'm dotting I's, crossing T's, looking at all the parts on the parts list, figuring out how they all interrelate, figuring out structural loads, figuring out forces generated from wind, from snow, from even manna on the roof. So leaving no stone unturned in that analysis. So that's kind of the basis and the kind of rigor that I've gone through. You read the English description and it's like, well, this dimension is 50 by 100. It's a rectangle. This guy's a crazy idiot just looking for attention, etc. Think of that, think what you may of me, I guess, but I'm not without basis for saying so, and I'm not without Hebrew basis for doing so. So I'll begin with that. So I'm going to just switch here into my oh, why is it not doing that? My small screen. There we go. Okay, so I got kind of a presenter view here. So with respect to, I'm going to just kind of do a real crash course because of, in the interest of time. So let me just skip ahead a few slides here. Okay, sorry. So years ago, I made a what I call Levite boot camp, which is describing introducing the tabernacle, getting into different elements of it. One of them, you let my people go so that they may what? So they may have a festival to me in the wilderness. The word there, Yachagu, the idea of Chag, the Chagim, the festivals, Chag Sameach. It's referring basically to that which is circle and circular. So I think that's kind of the first point of allusion for that. I'm just skipping through here again. Is a issue of response. So it's kind of starting out with call it anecdotal evidence here. With respect to ancient dwellings, how did the ancients actually build? And you look at all the way around the world, and you'll see the same pattern of dome, dome, dome. You've got Samoan Pacific Islanders. You've got Eskimos, igloo again, yigal from Hebrew there, gull for the idea of a mound. We've got round structures are balanced. This is part of why we see everything in nature as well as a lot of these structures are this way. It's a best allocation of materials. So Native Americans, there's several different between the Plains Indians, Indians out east, Indians out west. They're all running round structures. Even Northern Europe, we got the same thing. We got essentially like teepees there. They're very wind resistant, which is kind of if you're blowing wind on a billboard, that's kind of like the rectangular tabernacle. It's not good from a load imbalance. So I mentioned the Scottish Isles. The Crannog is particular. So you get all over the world, Nigerians, Sri Lanka. You got the stupa. Again, dome, dome, dome. We see it again and again. The Mongolians, of course, their yurts are called gers, or yurts. And so you've got yurt, ger, and yurt. being used in different translations. Of course, in Hebrew, ger is sojourner, right? The idea of sojourning, and so it all has Hebrew etymology. Genghis Khan, had 30 oxen or what have you towing his mobile command center, a yurt around. Part of the reason it's practical is because it's defensible. It's round. It's a turret. The nomads, we have great heating in these things, that heat from the center. That way you're heated evenly in all directions. Um, You've got, again, the accordion frame. You see all the tents that we make today are mostly, the structurally sound are more, tend to be more dome tents for good reason. And then we get to this whole Israel story, this story about the Exodus. How did ancient Hebrews build is the question. And again, tradition says this is what we got. We got some. I refer to this affectionately, and not so much, as the shoebox. You might want to refer to it as a shipping container, a Winnebago, or cracker box if you don't like the shoe analogy. But this thing again, you're talking about this 50 by 100 expectation that everyone has from reading Exodus 27. They say case closed, but there's no dimensions of this actual the tabernacle structure itself as it's completed. And this is again where Josephus is mentioning, and everyone kind of gets lost in this tradition. They start with the image, translate the text to fit the image, and then they're stuck with basically what is a bad tradition. Now, the thing is when I say it's round, people say I'm crazy. Well, they say, well, it's so obvious how everyone translates it the same. Well, that's not true, because we've got box, 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 and here we got A-frame, A-frame, A-frame. So if you start looking at it all, it's like, well, how is it that they're differing on these positions? These are the experts. Again, we have overall tent shape and size, length, width, and height, all the same. Roof shape, curtain and tent frame arrangement, courtyard, post quantity and spacing. This idea that there's consensus among the experts is just a myth. We start to look at some of these details and some of these old etchings. You get these giant silver post caps, which would far exceed the 1775 shekels, or 40 pounds. You've got massive wood beams. Again, Exodus 27 doesn't mention wood for these posts at all. Tabernacle entrance employs 3 instead of 5 posts. It's like, isn't that interesting? Here we've got no silver post caps. This is out of the Holman Bible, Christian Bible years ago. And frankly, they'll borrow one from another. So whether it's Jews from Christians or Christians from Jews, you see them swapping each other's artwork. Here we got 6 entrance posts. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 0 slope to the roof, which is kind of a problem. What they have here, what it looks like, it's gilded wood. Well, why would you have gilded wood like that on the courtyard? It doesn't make any mention of wood. Here, these things are shown freestanding. They look like well over twice the height of an adult. And it talks about the tabernacle being 5 cubits tall, which, by big estimates is 10 feet. And so it talks about bases of the courtyard. Here, they're only showing 2. And the irony here in this picture, you've got all these round tents floating around the city here. So here's another one. We've got solid wood roof. Again, where in the Bible is it telling you to do that? They got no bars or mechanisms for interconnecting, and oversized beams and pillars. Again, this is the physics of it just get to be more and more imaginative and ridiculous. Here, what do we have? The tabernacle entrance at 3 posts, it looks like. Slaughter at the wrong tent entrance, that makes for a messy locale. So if you can imagine them doing slaughter right there, this is where the Holy of Holies, or the priest is going to walk into the holy place. But they're supposed to wash their hands and feet before they go in. So what are they doing, tracking animals around it? Here we got an extra altar. There's 2 altars there. I don't know what's going on with that. Water basin is on the wrong side of the altar. It's again supposed to be closer. The altar is farther. And again, these things have been accepted as reasonable. When people take a glance at it, you look at some of these proportion, 4 to 5 foot metal bases. I mean, because these bases, according to them, are metal. If you can imagine how many tons those things would be weighing. So you have a lot of brilliant Jewish scholarship over the years, but nobody's really been too diligent in tracking all this data detail here. Disproportionately small courtberry. You see the giant thing, and I guess this is kind of the way that artists of the day kind of exaggerate thing. Here we got a thick wood floor as well. No mention of the floor. We got this baby cage around the altar, maybe to keep the dogs out. I don't know. Here's another image found in the Holman Bible and Jewish Encyclopedia Art. We have top and bottom, again, wood posts. This is an actual structure they have constructed in Israel and Timnah. This is put together by Germans, ironically, German Christians. And there's another one that was operating in Ariel that was run by Jews. Here they got galvanized steel helping this thing stand up. I don't think Moshe Rabbeinu was using that. They substitute wood for metal and metal for wood. Here we got, again, this is Ariel installation. Here you got these big silver caps on the top. They're using hollow beams here, made of faced plywood, basically. Again, big silver things. Oversized metal bases, again, don't match the description. Here we got a typical, another problem here. It says that the gate pillars shall be 4 and their sockets 4. Well, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 gate posts. How is that? 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5. So they're not identical, nor are they compliant in any way, and nor are they viable. So again, if I see that after I die, I think I'll found myself in the wrong afterlife. So as an engineer, I'd roll over in my grave. So as I was going through Israel, I was trying to find people who were subject matter experts, and they kept kicking the can down the road. Oh, talk to this guy, talk to that guy. It's not my field, right? But a lot of these people who are experts, again, they can't reconcile these things. It's very hard to find people in Israel that are actually well versed in it. There's some Jews who have the Torah memorized, and so those are fun discussions I have with them, but they haven't really thought of a lot of the instructions. So I refer to this as the tent of El Shaddai because the gematria for Shaddai, Shin Dalet Yud, is actually 314. So that's why I named my book The House of El Shaddai. It's the house of the God of Pi, so to speak. Most people haven't tried putting this together by themselves. And again, I'm going to try to go through fast. Everyone gets the IKEA instructions and they never want to follow any instructions, right? That's just how we are by nature. So it starts out with this, I shouldn't say starts out, this is Exodus 7. Make the tabernacle with 11 curtains, the length of 30, the breadth of 4. Again, everyone is nodding off by now. Shall be all one measure, 5 curtains by themselves and 6 by themselves, double the 6th curtain. So this is how it's traditionally depicted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 curtains plus another 6. That last one, we are folding it in half lengthwise. And as we continue in the details, make 50 loops at the edges of these things to couple of them together. I have little the red dots showing you kind of where the 50 loops will be joining. But this leaves a problem in that on this end of this one curtain, there's all these loops that remain unattached, and the same thing you get going on this other side. So they think that this swatch is sitting over the roof, of this box, not so structurally sound box thing. So curtains. The curtains in Exodus 26, I want to say verse 13, it talks about putting it over the side, al tzadi. We get our English word side, obviously, from tzadi, from sadi, from the letter sadi. And so it talks about putting the curtains over the sides of the tabernacle, the curtains that are mentioned in Exodus 26, 7 through 13, over the sides, not on the top, over the sides. So that's like one, language breakdown that we have. So I was looking at the thing, which edges are these joined on? So traditionally they join them all on the long edges, and they come up with dimensions that are at that 42. The question proposed that I came upon, like this is going back to, I don't know, July of 2014. Well, what happens if you were to connect them on the short edges? So if we connect them on the short edges, you have to remember that all these curtains have loops on the edge. So every place you see a little red spacing here is a place where you have curtains connecting. So you got a set of 5 and a set of 6, and these all measure 30. And the last one you're told to fold in half, and it says to do that at the front El Mul. It's described at the forefront of the tabernacle. With forefront, we have what? Foreskin. We have the idea of circumcision. It's not called square incision; it's circumcision. So we have this math coming up. 1 through 10 is 300 plus another 11 divided by 2. I'm sorry, the 11th is divided in half. So you have 15 cubits. So when I saw that, I'm like, wow, 315, that's pretty close to pi. But then I read verse 13, and the hairs on my neck stood up, because I'm seeing it says overlapping a cubit on one side, a cubit on the other side shall hang over the sides. And after that, I realized that is a 1 cubit overlap that is accommodating for this to make it, consistent with the pi constant 314. That would be you'd have a nominal diameter of 100 cubits, and that's how wide the courtyard is described as being, is 100 cubits long. Okay, so we have our issue of a dimensional reference and everything like that. So this is kind of what started me down this path of um, uh, trying to get all this other stuff. Again, I'm going through the Chag here, the Hagag, the circular festival. Guess who does the Hajj? The place where people get trampled to death. And chances are, I would venture to guess that they're getting trampled at the corners. These are pinch points. So the Arabs do what's called the Hajj, around Mecca, and again, people get killed in it. Um, Again, nobody likes Exodus so much, listening to all this stuff. And there's some people who are like, what does this matter? And so, touching on that, can you imagine if, coming down from Sinai, he says, "Here, I got these plans for my house. It's really cool." And the people said, shape doesn't matter. It's not a salvation issue, or what have you. This is the mindset of people. It's like, well, why does that matter for me today? Um, so I got some of these just legends as symbols used in my book, but that's kind of the overall premise of, taking a lot of these parts and quantities, and just rearranging them literally according to the Torah, and trying to um, rearranging them so that they're arranged in a meaningful way, a technical way, an exacting way. Again, all according to the Torah. So this is just, in the background. We got all the parts list. If you were to consider this to be a big bill of material in engineering, we have bills of material where it lists every single item that's being used in a design. All the different nuts and bolts and all that. So this is our list of nuts and bolts. So this is again part of this presentation where I'm just getting into the mechanics of the first set of coverings. Again, they assume a 4-layer roof, which is another nonsensical thing for a tent. Of why would they have a 4-layer roof? And so as my book is based on the idea of deconstructing the shoebox tabernacle and reconstructing it as a round structure. So you start with these 10 curtains. These 10 curtains, there's 2 sets of 5. They're grouped in 2 sets of 5 on the box model for no apparent reason. But I'm basically saying, no, the loops are on the cut ends, and this is relative to like loom weaving. So loom weaving, what do? They use they pull a span along piece of fabric with loops at both ends, loops and sticks, right? So as we do this, we start to see how these loops were meant to be joined. Woman to sister in Hebrew is what it says. Uh, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this the first set. This is Exodus 26, 1 through 6. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, joined together so that it may be one curtain. Now the dimensions, this length dimension, width dimension, they suddenly start to make sense. And so the one that was the pie curtain I've already kind of showed you. So that's what they translate as being the second on the roof, a set of 6 and a set of 5. So we strip that off the shoebox tabernacle and arrange it the way that we're supposed to. And you get again your 10 curtains, and your 11th one is folded in half, and it is basically found doubled at the gate entrance. Again, there's the math of all that, but so this is the overall premise of this tabernacle book is not only book, but this discovery is rooted in the proper appropriation of materials, the proper arrangement of materials, the proper quantities of materials, the proper weights of materials. And I would dare anyone who thinks that the thing is a shoebox to come and come and exchange with me, because you're not going to be able to substantiate this in all traditions. So the question on where do we go with this, to a large degree, this I think it terrifies a lot of people within Judaism and Christianity, because it means that their translation, the Bible that they got from their grandma, what have you, is something that cannot be fully trusted, or their traditions that in many cases they got from their rabbis that cannot be trusted. So I'm not trying to undermine the word. I'm trying to elevate the word. I'm trying to elevate it um, based on real world physics, real Hebrew text, real literal translation, and everything like that. So with that, you get into some of the implications of this. It does talk about how there's the two stick prophecy that with this being a 10 tribes centered group, the 10 tribes are how would I say, the 10 tribes are, the regathering is described in the book of Ezekiel, where it talks about, the two sticks, returning into his hand. The tabernacle itself, as it's in a dome arrangement, it's all described in two halves, a northern half, a southern half. Well, what do we have in Israel? We have northern tribes and southern tribes. You have not only the idea of tikkun olam actually is found like literally in it's tachun. I can't properly gutturalize my coughs, so pardon me to the native speakers, but and it's not tikkun with a kuf, but rather a cough. It doesn't mention the lung part, but the point is it's talking about a joining of the beams together of the north house to the south house. And in that same vicinity of the text in Ezekiel, it talks about how the Ephraim and Judah have returned, and arguably returned to it seems like the foothills of Ephraim. So from a prophetic standpoint here, everyone has expectations, the temple, the temple, the temple. Well, what about the tabernacle? What if the thing that we should be looking for in conjunction with the tribal return is a restoration of tabernacle? Let my people go, so they may yachagu, so they may dance, they can gyrate in a circle. Look at all the Jewish dances at the Wailing Wall. No matter the fact that they're all facing the Wailing Wall, doesn't matter. They're dancing in a circle, and they are celebrating the Chag, the festival, which is around the new moon time, and I think that might be referring to the Hag or the Hug in the sky, if you think about the circle and the circuit, on these periodic festivals. So I think that's what it's all about, and restoration of this tabernacle, restoration of the just the design in an intellectual sense is obviously the first step of this, because nobody's willing to consider anything apart from this paradigm and everything like that. So that the measurement of 50 by 100, what they don't understand is it's referring to the radius and the diameter. Okay, and I say the radius and the diameter because we have the radius, the width of it in an east-west direction, from the center is 50, and the direction of the court, the eastern half is also 50. The northern arc is 100 in its length, but again, that length is divided into two parts. And so what you're seeing in the Exodus 27 text is allusion to its orientation. When I say its orientation, we're talking about how far all the different posts are to be, or how the posts are to be, aligned. And this would have been aligned on what? Aviv 1. Aviv 1 happens to be um, it's the first day of the revolution. It's the only month that is mentioned by name in the entire Torah. And I think Aviv is related to, of course, Saviv, and Saviv in Hebrew is the idea of revolve. Okay, so this word for revolve in Exodus 27 has been buried and negated by bad translation. They'll even say in the English it's around the tabernacle, but they won't draw it being a round thing. It escapes them. So, the pi hint should be a big enough hint for us to say, maybe we didn't connect this right. The fact that all these different mechanical problems exist. Another hint, hey, we didn't do this right. If they want to have this shoebox arrangement, they either have to betray the text to make the math work, or betray the math to make the text work. Because you'll usually see where they got 21 posts on the south and 21 on the north, and possibly 10 or possibly 11 on the west. And so you get into this thing where if there's 20 on the south and 20 on the north, you have spaces in between. You have 19 spaces in between, and that doesn't divide it in a length of 100 real easy. So it's like 100 over 19. So you end up with a real weird denominator as far as managing all your distances, as far as the distances between the post staggering and all that. Like, who wants to count out 19th portions or use that as a denominator, in doing your math. So I guess I'm starting to ramble at this point with a lot of this, and I should probably, when I say turn this back over to a little bit on the Q&A, because I don't know how much time we want to spend on just me ranting versus dealing with questions of the group, which again are very much, I think, sensitive to the 12 tribes. You can see the 12 tribes also in the curtains, because you have 11 curtains around the ring, and then one of them, is folded in half. What do we have? The half tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. Well, then you've got another gate curtain, which is arguably the 11th. So you've got how is Levi being represented, or what have you. It's all there in a lot of weird nuance and mystery. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So I'll let someone else do some talking now.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That was wonderful. It's very thrilling to be thinking about the circular concept. And I'm not going to forget this when I think about circle dances and the circle of the full moon and the cycle of the feast days going around. And it just makes so much more sense than the abrupt corners of a rectangular tabernacle. Does anyone have any specific questions for Andrew?
Hang on. Yeah, Andrew, can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, how does this tie in with the temple, the shape of the temple?
Well, there's a number of reasons I have refrained from publishing on that. And one of the reasons is because I'm in the mentality that if I don't have it all down, I have no business putting it into print. There's one detail in my tabernacle model that I'm subject to opinion change on it, and that's not an absolute sense, but all around it works. It bears multiple witnesses. So if they were to do the temple, first of all, where did they erect that temple in Jerusalem? They did it on a threshing floor. A gerin is I want to say the Hebrew word we seem to get our English word grain from, right? So David is dealing with this plague, and he's like, oh, I got to buy this land from oh, I forget his name top of my head. Um, but the Jebusite who's living there, and David's like, oh no, I'm going to pay you here. And so they built it on a threshing floor. What is a threshing floor but a round circular thing that they're having the oxen, trample over, in a circle. So this was the first place where David says, "Hey, this is where we're setting up the temple." So David was also privy to knowing how the temple was. I'm sorry, the tabernacle was because he had visited it. Under the watch of Saul, the priests of Nob were all killed. So how the tabernacle was religiously speaking left in shambles at those times. I think it's the fact that um, it's assumed that like, hey, why don't you upgrade to the temple? And on one hand, the house of Eli was being punished because they did not do right with the holy things. They took the ark into battle when it's like that was not a good idea for them to do. So you have a lot of dysfunction that's happening between the time of Eli, Samuel, and the time of David. You got major religious upheaval, and you're going from a theocracy to a broken monarchy. And I say broken, you've got the two houses going on there too, between the southern tribe of David and Saul, Saul's guys. And so you do have a reconciliation that happens under the time of David. And David is in Jerusalem saying, how can the ark of the Lord come to me? Because his guy had got, was it Uzziah or something, got zapped by the ark. And so when he's having that ark taken there to Jerusalem, he put up a tent. So it begs the question, did he put up a tent just like the tabernacle because he had been in it? By then David has got like loads of money from looting his from the wars that he had been engaged with, all the nations that became tribute to him. By then he was plenty rich and could afford, doing a full temple. But he's like, oh, I want this temple to be. And so, this is where I think that the temple, and this is gonna, hit some Jews really, really hard, but I think the temple is a form of replacement theology. And I say replacement theology because, what's the response when David's like, oh, I want to build this tent? He tells Nathan, Nathan says, go ahead and do it, for God's with you. And then when Nathan comes back and does a U-turn, he says, wait a minute, on second thought, here's what the Lord says, when did I ever tell you that I wanted a house of cedar? Okay, right there, that sentence, that question, it's berated as if it's nothing. Okay, and then after that, it goes on to say, um, "Tell you what, David, I will build a house for you." Okay, and I think that's going through the house of Nathan, to be honest, as opposed to the house of Solomon, because this is again some of this language play. So if you look at these three accounts, this interplay between what David heard and what Solomon repeated, you got a little bit of it seems to be a narrative shift. And then you've got the divine response, and it says, "I have heard your prayer and have accepted this as a place for sacrifices." But in the book of Chronicles, it talks about um, uh, how let me just try to put my head together here. The Book of Chronicles talks about how David had received this from the handing from the writing of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is the way that it's called out in the Book of Chronicles, and it's translated more like, well, this is the pattern that the Spirit had put in his mind. And it's like, no, this was not, this was David going from the pages, from that which was written, it seems, which was already written. So some people believe that David was doing the scribal thing and doing the inspirational scribal thing. I do not believe that to be the case. I think this was a matter of divine consent as opposed to divine preference. Now, that being said, I think that David would have patterned it off of how the tabernacle was, seeing he saw it firsthand, seeing that he knew the word. And then the other thing that speaks very highly, besides that being a round thing, a round platform, is that how would I say this? I lost my train of thought. The round thing, that with the exiles that returned when they were starting to rebuild according to the dimensions of Cyrus, which were not small and meager. Okay, the people came and wept. The elders wept. The young ones rejoiced. Why did the young ones rejoice while the elders wept? Because the elders had seen what it was. So either they were building in the wrong place, as they say in Indiana Jones, um, or they were building to the wrong pattern, because it was only at the foundation. It was at the groundbreaking, when they had this weeping and rejoicing mixture. And again, the older people were not impressed, and the younger people were kind of like shrugging their shoulders. And the book of Nehemiah talks about how they were oblivious to a lot of the returning exiles. They didn't even speak the language. They didn't even speak the holy Jewish tongue, as it says. And so, really, what were they truly tasked to do? And what they were working according to Cyrus' plan. And Cyrus' plan, by the way, when they returned, that did not cause there's no record of the divine presence falling, in that thing, whereas it happened in the time of Solomon. So we know Solomon's was put on a round platform in Jerusalem, for starts. So that's one hint. We got the weeping is a second hint. Another thing is we got the inability to reconcile the Second Chronicles 3 with the First Kings 6 or 7 texts. That the Jewish tradition says that the one in Chronicles is right, I think, or is it Kings? I forget. But they're to the point where they're like in irreconcilable differences between those two. And I think those are irreconcilable because people are looking at the wrong paradigm. And I got about 80% of the way to proving another viable, system, but I couldn't quite force it over the line. So I'm like, I'm not gonna publish that. It's already going to be too controversial with doing, this over this, that is the dome or the box. That's already controversial. So why not start with a structure that nobody cares about, and getting them to care about it again is really because the divine, the imagery, the typology, all that's in this model. It's structurally, it's brilliant. This thing here, this box is unimpressive. Again, it's non-functional. So I hope that answers your question on the Solomon question.
Yeah.
Sorry for rambling for so long on that, but
Yeah. I th- I have to go myself now at 6 o'clock here. So thank you
I
very
have a small question. You've mentioned several times that David saw the Mishkan of Eli, and could you put that together for me, because that's unexpected.
well,
How did that happen?
David went to the priest, like they I think he gave him Goliath's sword or what have you. So when the tabernacle, I think it was transitioned from Shiloh. So you had that. They say that according to Kings of Chronicles, it was 480 years between the Egyptian Exodus and the Solomon's temple commissioning. So 480 years there. Jewish tradition says 369 years was the tabernacle in Shiloh. Now, before Shiloh is at Gilgal and I think another place or two. And same thing after Shiloh is at a couple other places. After they lost the Ark, they didn't have the Ark of the Covenant in the tabernacle for like 80 years. So we're talking 2 generations. So that would have been during the time of Samuel, as well as the beginning of David's service, as well as at the end of well, I shouldn't say at the end of Eli's, was it? I'm trying to think of when Eli died relative to the prophecy. He fell over in his chair and all that. So David, though, was, especially before he was king, or I say became, after he was anointed, between that and his king, it does mention how he went to the where the tabernacle was with the priests, if I recall correctly. And so that's kind of what I'm basing that on, is his interaction, with the priests. Again, he gave them Goliath's sword, I think. Or it was and he reclaimed that when Saul was chasing him, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I have to brush up on that again, on that detail, but that's why I believe that David knew the tabernacle. He saw the tabernacle, and they would have decommissioned the tabernacle then around the time of commissioning the temple, because other than that, you still had a Levitical system practicing or ongoing. The New Testament does make mention of a disaster that struck Shiloh, and the question is, like, the people in Shiloh, were they more wicked than everyone else? And it doesn't speak a lot. It talks about the tower at Shiloh. Well, tower there, I think they're using the word Migdal, and Migdal is from Gadol, and Gadol is basically the great thing, great, the thing from greatness at Shiloh. So, did they see Shiloh? Did the structure collapse there, or was it just decommissioned, or both? Did it collapse under wartime where they restored it? But they did. There is record of the tabernacle being elsewhere after Shiloh. I don't know if it's Gibeon or something like that. I'd have to go back and look at that tabernacle placement. But there's a number of years between the exit of Shiloh and the setting up of Solomon's temple, where the tabernacle is no longer in Shiloh. So
I have a question. So regarding the third temple of Ezekiel's vision in chapters 40 through 48, did Ezekiel get it all wrong, or we're not understanding his measurements and the models we have look wrong and it should be round?
bingo, bingo, bingo. Saviv, Saviv, Saviv. You will look in Hebrew, you will see the Exodus. I'm sorry, you will see the Ezekiel text making reference to Saviv many, many times. There was a guy, he was a Christadelphian, which is some, I don't know, Christian sect variant.
I know what they are. Ord Wingate was a member of that group. Go
There's
on.
a guy named Holly or Sully or something like that who did depict it as round.
Second, I have to unmute. If you were going to, let's say as an engineer, run the numbers through and tell the system, I want a round structure, what would it look like? Sort of like the Colosseum or something like that? I mean, would everything be round? Would all the subrooms, everything like a bunch of igloos together? Or to take his numbers, but program into your equations, okay, computer, give me a round or rounded structures rather than square, cubes, and rectangles.
I
What would
was,
it look like?
yeah, I was a little bit, I see some matching dimensions between Ezekiel's temple as well as Solomon's temple. But because of the language, again, in some of the Ezekiel spot, it left me kind of befuddled and uncertain as to how to interpret and manage some of those things. Some of these, I'm sure you probably heard of, what's his name? Isaac Mosen, who does Edenics. Edenics is the notion that, all these languages
I got to
that were,
unmute. Isaac is the chairman of our Hebrew Language Fellowship, and he
uh-huh.
spoke for many years in our lecture series until his tragic, about 20 years ago, he had a stroke and he couldn't speak so well, and he tried. And we did do some seminars when we moved to Zoom with the Israel Center. We had our lectures. You may have known it from when you were in Jerusalem. It was shut down in those dark, terrible years, March 2020. It's terrible. Talking about science fiction, I remember walking past the King Day, all the lights were up. What's a science fiction movie? It did reopen finally, but it didn't make it. It didn't move. It's not there anymore, which is sad for me because we had live lectures there for 25 January 1995 until shortly before everything shut down. But Isaac, he's getting up there, and it's hard for him to talk. So mostly he devotes his time to writing. And so yes, I know who he is because we worked together for many years, and he spoke many times in the lecture series. And we set up a Hebrew language fellowship just to promote his work. And maybe one day some doctors will come up with some cures for his stroke, and he was a terrific speaker. He's very funny. Maybe tomorrow someone will discover a cure for the paralysis he has, but he hasn't been able to speak really for years.
Yeah, Isaac is just brilliant. I got his Origin of Speeches book, and besides brilliant, 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 I forget to mention brilliant because it's like as I look at it, and so, but some of the implications of his work are this that sorry to the Orthodox, but was it Herzl or what have you? But the Jews do not have a full mastery of their own language. And some of the words that are found in the English even or in other non-Latin languages even convey truths of the Hebrew word that have been kind of some cases lost to Jews or Judaism. I'm not talking about gobs and gobs of them, but there's enough where it becomes impactful. You can see them do this with say like the ephod versus the choshen, right? So the ephod is part of the priestly garment, but the choshen is translated as breastplate. Well, why isn't the ephod translated? And they transliterate words that they generally don't understand. Like the Urim and the Thummim. Well, why not like lights and perfections? Or there's some that interpret it that way. But some of these things, the way they pop out into translation as opposed to transliteration, you can start to see where there's a breakdown of understanding when they transliterate, or in some cases when the phonics of the Hebrew, consonants and so forth better match an English definition. I found a few cases within the Tabernacle study as well as in other studies where it becomes, obvious. We use words like Kippur, Yom Kippur. The Hebrew word is cover, right? But no, they translate it as atonement, and so everyone's talking about using a word that you never use. I'm going to go to the store today and make atonement. We don't use that apart from religious context. So it becomes clear that there's a loss of meaning and understanding is gapped, between what was and what is.
That's
Or
why
what
God
is and what
sent us
was.
people like Isaac Moses, and we've
True.
been worked together many years, and I hope he'll recover either he'll have a spontaneous remission, which is what doctors call a miracle, or some medical advance will give him the ability to speak again because he's very funny. He's as brilliant as a speaker as a writer. Well, we're coming a little bit to the end of our time for what I hope will be future talks by you in our lecture series. Sylvia, maybe we'll take some last questions or comments because also I know in these days many people, our attention span is limited. I know myself, I'll rarely sit down to listen to something more than 5 minutes, which is terrible. All our programs are long, and I don't regret that because I'll see messages. First of all, every time about 1,000 lectures on Rumble. if someone posts a comment, the system informs me and sends me a copy. So all of a sudden, it will say someone commented on a video from 2 years ago. The comment will say, at 1 hour and 25 minutes, so and so said such and such. So our lectures are for people who have a longer attention span, which doesn't really include myself most of the time. And we don't do 2 to 5 minute fortune cookie style talks. They're good if you can do them. I don't know how something you're talking about could be put in 2 minutes. That would be really amazing. But we should come to an end now because we've gone on for about an hour for the recorded program. And what we can do is, if you have time to stay after we finish the recorded program, you can talk privately with our friends and colleagues, non-recorded. So
Sure.
since we're still in the recorded section, could you take a last question or comment from somebody and make a conclusion yourself, especially for the viewers and listeners out there, they exist, who will listen to a whole program. I mean, it's really something I've seen. They exist, not many, but they exist. Then there are people who say, okay, I won't listen to the whole program. I'll listen to the first 5 minutes, the last 5 minutes. They exist too. So it's something for everybody. Mark, Charlene, Mary, Miriam, any last questions or comments?
I'd like to.
Andrew,
I
I wanted to ask
actually
if you
have-
could make one. It's on the exact thing that you and Lowell just left off on, because I think it's really interesting about the fact that the English helps. One of the things that Yair Davidiy talks about, in fact, he wrote a book, Hebrew English, is that our English language it's a separate branch maybe on the Hebrew language, and it really does. There's some opportunity there for us to help understand our ancient Hebrew through English. I hope that I was in and out. I hope I didn't miss you already saying this, but you've got in the very beginning of your book, the builders' names.
Bezalel and Oholiab.
Yeah, but there's a name, or is it a title?
Yep. Bezalel, house in the image of God, and Oholiab is basically father of tents.
So these could be surnames, or they could be a name of an office.
Conceivably, it's interesting too, is they're mentioned in Exodus 31 near verse 4. 314, right?
That ironic. Yeah, that's great.
I have a question, please. This is Miriam. This is fascinating. First thoughts are things come to light at a time for a reason. So it'd be really interesting if this is all coming to light now. It will be for a reason, I think. And thank you for all the work you put into it. Have you ever had any contact with Joseph Good?
Yes.
Because I didn't know. It would be so wonderful for you guys to talk about this together with his knowledge with the temple.
Yeah, Joe is basically believer in the box model.
Okay.
So I have when I say I have yet to convince him, I've talked to him very very little about it. But his response was not one of advocacy. So
okay, it's interesting, but it's important to keep having conversations. So it's like it's just so fascinating. And also, are you familiar with Tamar Biblical Park, where they have a replica where apparently the tabernacle rested before it went to Shiloh?
Yeah, you said Timnah?
Tamar, 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 En Hatzavah, in the desert.
No.
They have a replica there but it's the square style replica. I just didn't know if you knew of it. That was all.
Yeah, I've actually made a 30 a replica 35 feet at the base, with and had that set up in one point in a church gymnasium, but would like to have a larger model. So that's part of the Project 314 is research and restoration. So research is obviously all think tank stuff, and the restoration is also mental restoration, but the idea of building models. So this is why I have that kit, is to help people So you can, bring your 10, 12-year-old kids along and, put it all together with sticks and with and it's all stuff that's all kitted. So that's the idea, is helping to restore it in the mind and to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, saying this is not speculation, my friends. This is not speculation. So
Well, maybe what we'll do is we'll conclude the recorded section now, and I don't know how long Mr. Hoy can stay, but as long as he can stay to talk to us.
I'll just say real quick, the House of El Shaddai's got a pie, and God's home is a dome. So I'll say that.
It's a wonderful title. Also, Mark, the name of the Hebrew roots of the English language is not written by Yair Davidiy. It's written by Isaac Moseson. It was published by Sapolsky Publishers many years ago. And when I went back to America in 1985 for a couple of months in 1986, I worked for him at his publishing house. And he publishes some very unusual books, and one of them was Isaac Moseson's The Hebrew Root. I have it. It's a big, gigantic, it's fascinating back and forth. Isaac is a genius in a class by himself, and Noam Chomsky doesn't like him, feels threatened by him because Isaac is too smart for Noam, and for big ego academics, as the Tao Te Ching of Lao Tzu says, he who feels pricked must once have been a bubble. Well, and bubbles are round. And the academic world, as our friend the engineer, was filled with lots of bubbles. Yes, there are exceptions, but he didn't like being. Isaac said, was it he or someone else sabotaged Isaac's doctorate? I don't have to tell you how vicious and mean the academic world is. Some of us know about that. And Isaac was just too smart for Noam. He still is, and very intimidating. And he is in the clan. As David Ogilvy from Scotland, the founder of Ogilvy and Mather, I have some of his books too, said, it is often said that mediocre men, don't be discouraged, lady, it's generic, don't recognize exceptional men like Andrew, for example. I disagree. David says, I believe mediocre men recognize exceptional men, resent them, and seek to destroy them. Well, I'm with David. So Isaac is in a class by himself. He's not very charitable to lesser intelligences, which is the world of conventional orthodoxy in linguistics, and they don't like him. Andrew, go ahead.
He doesn't like the round tabernacle either, though.
Okay.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant, but he hasn't comprehended it in its fullness, I don't think so.
Listen, he's not an engineer. Everybody has their field. We all have our limitations. We're all trying to work things out. And no question is off the. There's no reason people can't discuss whatever they want to discuss. For example, Miriam's friend in Salt Lake City is a Mormon. They don't like to be called that. And I remember telling the Mormon, I'm not a Christian, but I said, you're welcome to be a Mormon, but you're not a Christian. He was very insulted. I said, you can believe what you want, that God, it's a Trinity, and God the Father has a white beard and lives up on a planet somewhere, which is pretty much like Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard. But that you've read yourself out of normative Christianity. What do I mean by norm? Every religion, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, has what their own scholars have defined as normative. That doesn't mean it's right. Say, okay, I'm a Wahhabi and I believe, I'm looking at the Quran, God has a body. You've read yourself out of Sunni Islam. That's heresy. That doesn't mean it's wrong or you're bad, but it's not normative. So if you want to, Joseph Smith, he got the book from Moroni, whatever his name is, and tablets made of gold in upstate New York. And really, God the Father has a white beard, like it says, and I saw the Ancient of Days, and he lives on a planet somewhere, and we'll all recognize, will become little gods like him. You're welcome to believe that, but it's not Christianity. So she's a Mormon, and she participates in Miriam's, she's her friend, and she participates. Everybody's welcome to participate. You have to check your ideas at the door, whatever it is. Bob Marley was a Rastafarian. Well, his grandson just got bar mitzvahed here in Israel. His son married a Jewish girl, and she wants the kids brought up in the normative tradition. Same thing happened with Bob Dylan, is now an Episcopalian. The kids and by the time, no, thank you, Grandpa. We understand you went through Woodstock and all that in the 1960s, but give me that old time religion. So to each his own, in my opinion. So yeah, I know what normative teachings are. And also there are areas that are not clear. As Maimonides said, none of us will know what the prophecies mean, and they're general. We can until they actually are in being fulfilled. We can't tell you in what's the fallacy of over specificity. Like if you make an argument and you over make it, you undermine it. So we don't know until these things actually happen. Like, let's say some say the third temple will descend from heaven. We'll have to, part of it will come down, and maybe Three-Eye Atlas will send out a probe. Will it be round? Will it be an octagon, a hexagon, a square, a Rube cube? I don't know. We'll see when it happens. So anyway, Isaac has different ideas. That's okay. So we're so glad to have you and that Sylvia introduced you. We want to get people thinking, reading, writing. There's a scene in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. He was really funny. And he goes to school. He didn't go to high school. He made a lot of money, decides to go to college. And it's all about his antics there. There's one point he goes into a room. It's pure Yiddish humor. He says, "Here, boys, have some pens in case you learn how to write." And then they make funny faces at each other. Well, the tragedy is illiteracy has reached epidemic levels in the United States. In colonial times, the average farmer could read and write. There's a high level of literacy. And with John Knox in Scotland, universal education, 1500s, that's been lost in America. So we want people to think, read, write, take a pen, write down the cow jumped over the moon. Maybe you don't use a pen anymore, boys and girls, after you use your stupid box. Now, my friend, then we'll conclude, is a computer mathematics physics genius from my Beit Knesset from Kiev. He lives in another world. And I said, it's a stupid box. He got very insulted. He said, do you know how much technology went to produce that box? He said, no, it's not a stupid box. It's a smart box, often used by stupid people. That was his interpretation. Here's my stupid box, pen and paper. Okay. So anyway, so we want to thank Andrew. We want to thank Sylvia for bringing Andrew for this fascinating talk. And we wish everyone all the best. We're all walking through the bullets everywhere. I don't see how people don't notice that. Over 1 million dead in Ukraine. People, everything's fine. We're not in World War III. Well, it may not have hit you in the cornfields of Idaho, but it could live there too in World War II and say nothing's happening. It's not good. So thank you, Sylvia from Michigan and Andrew from Wisconsin and Lowell from actually the Hill of the Priests overlooking. There's 5 sacred hills. Andrew knows them. He's been here. Mount Zion. Will there be the Kisei Kavod? That's another hot potato we should talk about sometime. What's the Kavod and what's the Kisei? Then there's Mount Moriah, the third temple, whatever it's going to look like. Then there's Har HaZofim, and who are the watchers? Are they the watchers from Daniel's vision? Then there's Har HaZeitim, the 5 sacred hills. That's ground zero. Everybody in the world wants it. They all want it, like the ring in the Lord of the Rings. Everybody wants it. So that's where we're broadcasting from, the Hill of the Priest, Givat Hanani Abu Tur. And Andrew knows it very well from being here. So thank you and shalom. And we wish everybody all the best in our these are the times that try men's souls. I agree. Okay, we will see you in a month in November for episode 47.